Hello, everybody, and welcome to Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to remind everybody that you can support Attendance Bias by rating and reviewing the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow Attendance Bias on social media, and most importantly, you can visit www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate anything you can to keep the show running. Now, on to today's episode. We've made it! It's the tour closer, and that means it is the series closer of the 2026 Summer Tour Preview. Phish is closing the 2026 Summer Tour with a pair of shows at a venue with a complicated Phish history, Fenway Park in Boston. It's no stretch to say that Boston is a pivotal city when it comes to Phish history. It's pretty much a straight line from Burlington to Boston to New York, with occasional stops in Colorado when it comes to crucial places on the Phish Map. Yet, since the mid-90s, Phish has become a bit shy when it comes to playing Beantown. And when they do play in Boston, it's at the oldest active stadium in Major League Baseball, Fenway Park, a venue loved by baseball fans and loathed by live music fans. To help us bridge that gap is today's guest, Dave Hamilton. Dave has more than his fair share of experience behind the mic and behind the drum kit. He plays in at least two bands, Casual Gravity and Bitter Pill. He also hosts or co-hosts the podcasts Gig Gab about music and musicians, Geek Gab about Apple products, and Business Brain for entrepreneurs. So you can tell he's got the experience with speaking about his passions, not to mention a touch of Casey Kasem in his vocal tone. In other words, he knows what he's talking about, and it's fun to listen to him tell us what he knows. For today's purposes, Dave tells us about what makes Fenway great, what makes it not so great, and why Phish's ascent through New England in the 90s and early 2000s were so meaningful. In addition, we make sure to touch on key moments and gigs from Phish's extensive history in Boston, and also what to expect for these upcoming Fenway shows based on their previous performances at the stadium. So let's join Dave Hamilton as we close out the summer tour and this series preview at Fenway Park on July 31st and August 1st, 2026. Dave, welcome to Attendance Bias. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
I'm stoked to have you here because you seem to be one of the few people who actually want to talk about Phish at Fenway Park. They're coming up at the end of July, July 31st and August 1st, so 2 nights at Fenway in Boston. And I don't know, I want to get to the heart of this because I've never seen Phish in Fenway Park. I've seen them in New England for sure. Unless you count Hershey Park, I've never seen them in a stadium. So I kind of want to hear from you the ins, the outs, and I guess everything else leading up to it. But before we get into any of that stuff, Dave, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as a Phish fan, and also what is your history in the Boston area?
Sure. Yeah. I have mostly always lived in New England. When I first started seeing Phish, I first saw them in 1993. I was living down in Connecticut and saw them at the New Haven Coliseum, which no longer exists. And then we did wind up popping up to Boston to see them at the old Boston Garden for that New Year's Eve show in 94, and MSG the night before that too. I lived in New England. I grew up in southern New England in Connecticut, and then lived in Austin, Texas for about 6 years, and then came back to New England. And we've been in the sort of greater Boston area. I'm in New Hampshire, about an hour north of Boston, and we've been here for 20 years.
So if you grew up in Connecticut in what you call the southern New England area, does that mean you're a Red Sox fan, or is it a sin for me to even say Yankees fan?
Oh, no. Where I grew up, I mean, we were way closer to Yankee Stadium than Fenway Park. My family were Mets fans. So, yeah, so it's fine for me to be a Red Sox fan now that we live here near Fenway Park. So, yeah, it's all good.
So you seem to be familiar with Fenway Park as a baseball fan. How familiar with it are you going to see concerts there as a concert goer?
So I have been to exactly one Red Sox game at Fenway Park. I have been to many more concerts there than baseball games. I am not a baseball fan by anyone's measure, but I am absolutely a live music fan. So I've seen a lot of concerts there. I think the first show that I saw there would have been Paul McCartney. But the Phish show in May of 2009 was right about that time, and that was, and I've seen Foo Fighters there. I mean, I've seen a lot of bands there. It is fortunately and unfortunately a venue where bands play, but that Phish show in May of 2009, that was that was pretty special for, at least for me and for a lot of people, because it was the first time that we were seeing the band. It was the beginning of summer tour, the year that Phish came back, right after the hiatus. So if you didn't make it to Hampton, Virginia, Fenway Park was a big deal, and they came out and started with Star Spangled Banner at the Pitcher's Mound, and it was really nice.
I might ask you this again later, but do you have any, just off the top of your head, any tips or tricks when going to see a concert there, like better entrances, places in Fenway to avoid where the sound quality may be not so good, or maybe places where they're better than other parts of the stadium?
Yeah. So Fenway Park it's a baseball stadium, and it's an old baseball stadium. So if you are in the grandstands in seats that are covered, the good news is that you are shielded from the rain and, depending on where you are, maybe even the sun. The bad news is that you get to hear every note the band plays twice, because it bounces around in there. And I've seen that when we were there for Phish, actually in 2009, we were in the grandstands, and we moved our seats. We moved ourselves. We left our seats where they were. We moved ourselves up about, I want to say, maybe 8 or 10 rows, because I think the first song was Star Spangled Banner, like I said. I think the second song, which was really the first song of the set, there was like a 5-minute gap while they kind of got the band back to where they needed to be, was Sample in a Jar. And it was like, yeah, I don't need to hear this on a, one, maybe 800 millisecond delay. I want to just hear the song as it comes out of the speakers. So we moved up, so we were no longer hearing the reflection off the ceiling. The other thing about seeing a concert at Fenway Park is that the stage is in the outfield. So it is opposite from where home plate is, which means that all of the seats are like angled the wrong way. So if you were to sit in your seat, which at a Phish show, most people do not, but if you were to sit in your seat, you are angled facing away, 30 degrees away from the stage. It's a weird kind of thing just because of the nature of how it is. But if you're on the field, it's great. Like, the sound on the field is, I mean, you're just on a field. So like, you're just hearing it from the speakers. Yeah.
Right. And speaking in baseball terms, that's a big criticism of Fenway Park, because actually all the seats are not always pointed at home plate, but like some are vaguely toward the field.
Correct.
Right? It's such an old stadium. It wasn't designed in the way that modern stadiums are. I am a big baseball fan, and I love touring stadiums. So like, whenever I've been to Fenway, it's like an illustrious piece of Americana, but it's simultaneously outdated and classic. Like, you love it and you don't love it at the same time.
That is absolutely correct, and you will experience all of that going in. The one thing that I will say is that, I mean, because it's a baseball stadium, the bathrooms are plentiful compared to other like concert-specific venues, because, baseball is all about like being out in the sun and drinking beer for a lot of people. And those people want to get back to sitting in their seats and being in the sun and drinking beer. There's plenty of bathroom capacity there. That's not to say that there won't be lines at set break. There will be, but they will be way better than, say, Great Woods.
I haven't been to Fenway since maybe 2012, maybe 2009. Do they still have the troughs there for the male restrooms?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. In some of them. Others, there are urinals where the spacing between the urinals is such that the most comfortable thing to do would be to link arms with the person next to you, because your elbows want to be where their elbows are. So yeah, it's tight. It's a tight fit. If you're shy, it's not for you.
Well, can I tell you my favorite urinating in a baseball stadium experience was at Wrigley Field, another old-timey stadium, right? There wasn't just a trough, there was also a wall. A wall that had like a slight gradient to it. They just stand up in front of the wall and you pee on it, and it just slowly like drips or drains down into the bottom. And I remember hearing a little kid and a dad walk into the bathroom together as a father takes a son into the bathroom at a baseball game.
Yep.
And I just heard the kid, I didn't see any of this because I was at the wall, but behind me go, "You pee on that?" And the dad goes, "Yeah, go for it."
Yeah.
It's a video game.
Right. That go for it. Yeah. Yeah. Baseball stadiums are their own kind of experience. And that is the case with Fenway. In terms of getting entrances and getting in, they probably will let you in any entrance, but your tickets will tell you which gate to go in. And it generally is best to follow that advice. It is a wide, kind of oval inside there. And it's helpful to kind of enter near where you're going to be sitting. But you can get everywhere from any of the gates. It just, if your gate has a big long line and another gate doesn't, well, then go in. But chances are, if one gate has lines, they're all going to have lines. So
yeah, we'll figure it out. Well, if everyone gets in.
Yeah. Phish, the nice part, well, it's a double-edged sword. The nice part about being a Phish fan is that everyone is a professional concert goer, right? It's not like going to see, say, Paul McCartney or pretty much almost any other band. Where that's nice is everybody knows how to get in. By the time they're up at the front, everybody's got their tickets ready. They know how to do the thing. They're ready for security. No one's holding up the works because they don't understand what's about to happen next. Everyone knows what's about to happen next. The problem is when it comes time to buying tickets, everyone knows all the tricks. So that's the double-edged sword. But we all know that. So, yeah.
I was going to say everyone's a professional concert goer until the second set and things start to kick in, but that's for another story.
Yeah. But yeah, correct. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, even then, most people kind of know how to manage themselves, even through that part of the evening, if that's the path they choose. But,
I like your optimism. A lot.
Most people.
In addition to entrances and like the basics, what about pre-gaming? What about places to go, recommendations, things that people should eat, things they can do before the show? Any recommendations as a New Englander?
It's kind of a weird spot, the Fenway in Boston is. There are places around there, certainly. It's a baseball stadium, right? There's plenty of places to eat, lots of sports bar kind of things. And they're all generally pretty good at moving people in and out and getting food served before concerts and all of that. Many places will take reservations, so book those if you know you're going to want them. Shows at Fenway have to end early, so they start early. I think these are scheduled as 6:30 starts on the ticket. So figure by 7:15 the show is actually starting. And it depending on where your seats are and of course the weather for the day, it can be blazing hot in there, when in a summer show. Yeah.
Let's take a look at the venue history of Fenway Park. I mean, there's a tremendous amount. I mean, it's well over 100 years old. It's by far the oldest venue on this summer tour. It is the oldest active ballpark in Major League Baseball. It was built in 1912. It's hosted the Boston Red Sox ever since. Like I mentioned earlier at the top of our conversation, I'm a Yankees fan. I have to admit that Fenway Park's dimensions, the pesky pole and the big green monster, it's probably the most iconic in all of baseball, indisputable part of Americana. I don't like the Red Sox. I love Fenway. I love being at Fenway Park. Like when I'm watching it on TV, I'm like, man, fuck that place. But when you're sitting there, it's something. It feels different. I have to admit it. I have to give it up, especially compared to the new Yankee Stadium. I'm not the biggest fan of, but Fenway Park feels like a time travel machine, at least for baseball. I don't know if that carries over for concerts.
No, it definitely does. It has a vibe to it. You'll see it and feel it when you walk in. I mean, it just has like the concourse area is very open air in a way that isn't the case with a lot of even outdoor, stadium style venues. you're all just you're always kind of outside. You can be covered, and if there's lightning or whatever, you can be safe, and I can attest to that. Yeah, it's a fun little place. Again, with the aforementioned caveats of being not under the covered part of the grandstands, at least sound wise. I like seeing shows there. It's not the easiest place to park. It's not the easiest place. It's like if you can just book a hotel and stay, it's easier that way. By the time this episode comes out, all the hotels have been booked. But
is that what you're doing as someone who doesn't live that far away?
We have this time. We are not. We are driving in and out, and there's a variety of reasons for that. We have a bunch of family that's going to be in town, and we're all going to go together. So getting hotels for everybody would have been kind of a fiasco. So I have a gig of my own with one of my bands that I play in. So my family will happily be at Phish on Friday night without me, and then I will be there joining them on Saturday night. So no, we'll just drive in and out. One piece of advice that I will give for parking anywhere around there, it's going to be expensive and it's going to be a pain in the neck. One thing that can ease that pain on the way out is to be on the other side of the bridge from the venue. Look at a map. You will see what I'm talking about. There's a bridge that can be covered on car or on foot. If you are on the other side of that bridge with your car, you will have less traffic to fight to get out of there.
That is the tip that I look for. That's what I want to know. That's my favorite stuff. As a New Yorker, I always want to know what's the parking going to be like? What's the best place to park? How much is it going to be? That's always what I'm thinking. So on behalf of any attendance bias listeners who are driving in and are like me, thank you.
You're welcome. Of course, before recording this episode, I made sure to book my parking for both nights just in case. But, I certainly didn't want to announce it here and then be like, wait, I told everybody else where to park and now I don't have a spot anymore.
Right. It's not the secret. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm letting the secret out. But after I've taken care of myself and my family.
Of course. It's the American way.
It is. Yeah. No, the American way, I think, is just to not let the secret out at all. But,
That's for another podcast.
Probably so.
And moving away from Fenway itself, let's look at the wider area of Phish in Boston. Right, that could be the title of a documentary, right? It would be the first chapter of the Phish story, or maybe the third. I don't know. That's to be determined. But Phish clearly needs no introduction to Boston, and vice versa. No one in Boston needs to be told who Phish is, because when they got started, they were, and I'm putting this in quotes, a band out of Burlington, and then they slowly expanded by like 1989 or 1990. They became a New England band, so their radius got much bigger, and Boston is the epicenter of New England. So in the late 80s and early 90s, they were making inroads into Boston venues. And when I looked up their like most played venues in Boston, just the city, I'm not counting like the surrounding towns, the Strand Theater, although technically it's in Dorchester, Molly's was their first appearance in Boston itself. But this is, legendary. Anyone listening to this show who's a big Phish nerd would know this story in early 1989 at the Paradise Rock Club, still standing.
No, I've been to the Paradise many times. I did not see Phish there in 1989. But that story is interesting, right? They kept trying to get booked at the Paradise, and the Paradise wouldn't book them. So they four-walled their own event there. They rented the club and sold their own tickets, and it sold out. And there was a line down the street. And after that, the club's like, hey, so when do you want to come back? And they were like, it turns out we learned a thing tonight. We're gonna do this a little differently going forward. Yeah.
And I remember, I think Mike Gordon in an interview was probably for a podcast. It's like you said, I have bits floating around in my brain somewhere.
Yeah.
It's almost all Simpsons quotes and Phish trivia. So, but
sometimes those two intersect. So,
that's true. Those days I ring the bell. I remember him saying that at like ever expanding venues, he gets like a little bit of a rush when you get on stage and the lights go down and you see the crowd. And he said, whether it's something like Big Cypress or a festival or Madison Square Garden, they still play. But he said the first time he really got that rush was when they sold out and rented out the Paradise. And he said there were people at the windows he remembers looking over, trying to get a glimpse in through the windows. And the irony of it is that they didn't have people from Boston come sell out the venue. Like you said, they sold their own tickets in Burlington, and people rented coach buses to come down.
It was an experiment for them, and it was a risk for them for sure. I think that gig meant a lot more to Phish history than even the band articulates.
Just a couple of times. Lost his mind just a couple of times. You can spend your nickels, you can spend your dimes, but I lost my mind. Trespass anywhere. You can trespass anywhere. But where you go, you better beware. Cause you can trespass anywhere. I forgot the rules, I forgot my pride. But I don't need a place to hide. I forgot the rules, I forgot my pride. But I don't need a place to hide.
Everything kind of amplified from there when they realized, wait a minute, we can sell out the Paradise on our own. We're not waiting for anybody else to do the promotion. We just rented the room we wanted to play, and we played there and did well. I think that gave them a confidence and an awareness that probably carries them to this day.
And Dave, since you said you've been to the Paradise many times, about how big is it without, looking it up? What would you guess?
I would say it's an 800-person club, but I mean, we can all look it up. But yeah, that would be my guess. It's a 933-person capacity. There you go. And it is, I mean, it is the dingiest of all rock clubs. Like you would not want to see that place with the work lights on after a show, like or even before a show. I would imagine. I've never played there, but it's one of those places you go in and you're like, yeah, keep the lights down. Like I don't need to see what the floor looks like here. It's just it's a warehouse kind of building.
But that's
fun though.
Yeah. And that's a big deal though, because if it's 933 people, right? Exactly. When I just did a recent interview of a fan named Matt Leaf who was telling about his experience at Amy's Farm. And that show was 1990. And in my research, I found that John Paluska, the band's manager at the time, said that the average show was about 1,000 people in 1990. And so even a year before that, for them to rent out 1,000, approximately, we'll round up for the band if you like them, 1,000 people, and for everyone to show up and sell out and have a line down the street, like you said, it leads to my next question. What do you think Boston meant to the band and the Phish community, symbolically, I mean, in that early part of 1.0?
The best perspective I can share is my own. Growing up in Southern Connecticut, where I did, which was about an hour and change from Manhattan. I played in original bands there. And, you could do well in your venues in your hometown and surrounding areas, and you build up a crowd. But there was always that, man, someday, we got to play New York. And it was as scary as it was exciting, the idea of playing New York City, because it was like, all right, well, now, like, that's a whole different, like, we are now smaller fish in a much bigger sea. competing for attention in that market, but it means so much, right? And I have to presume that Phish saw Boston in a similar light. So I think that was a big emotional hurdle to cross for the band. That would be my guess.
Yeah, no, I thought of it similarly. I was thinking through your description, I was thinking of like the beginning of Saturday Night Fever, and John Travolta's looking across the Brooklyn Bridge to Manhattan. And he's like, it's like, that's where the horizon ends. Like, that's where the real excitement is. And I agree with you. I think Boston was that place. Like Burlington was their home. New England and a lot of college towns in, the late 80s were their bread and butter. But Boston was something else. Boston was the big city.
Boston was a big city. Also a college city, right? Like,
Yes.
Definitely a city that was theoretically conquerable. But could they conquer it is a whole other question. So,
do you think that Boston still means much to Phish? I mean, I have my own thoughts, but I want to hear it from you.
It's interesting because living here, I'm keenly aware of how often I need to travel and how far I need to travel to see Phish. Like last summer when they played Manchester, New Hampshire, which is about 40 minutes from my house, that was the first time I've seen any A-level touring band hit Manchester. And there were some reasons for that. Well, Manchester rolled out the red carpet for Phish last summer because I think they wanted to earn their spot back on the touring circuit in general. And I think in a lot of ways they did. Phish doesn't play Boston all that often. It is rare for me to be able to sleep in my own bed after seeing a Phish show. And I live in New England. You would think that this would be like, I can drive to Burlington and be there in like 4.5 hours. You would think that this would be a regular occurrence. And it's like, oh yeah, you just went and saw Phish. But no, I've got to go to Philadelphia. I've got to go to New York. I've got to, go to Mexico. I've got to go to Tahoe, wherever it is. My guess is that, and I could be totally wrong on this, my guess is that Phish stays away from Boston because there are so many fans here in New England that they can't manage the flow as well as they can in other markets. They know we are crazy and will travel, right? And so I think this is, nobody other than Phish and maybe Ticketmaster knows how many Phish fans there are. I heard Bob Lefsetz say at one point, he said, the joke in the industry is that there's 75,000 Phish fans and it's just that they all go to every show. I think that number might be higher than 75,000, but I don't think it's 10 times that much, right? I really don't think that there are 1 million people that are like us that want to go to, multiple Phish shows. I think we're in the hundreds of thousands and probably less than 500,000. But I think there's a concentration of us here in the Boston, New England area. And that's always been my theory. I could be totally wrong. And if somebody wants to let me know, privately what that number is, I would love to know just for my own edification. And maybe they've already told me and I'm just really good at not sharing it.
This podcast is called Attendance Bias. It's all about biases. It's all about speculations and what do you think?
Yeah. So that is my what do you think? Yeah.
Yep. And when we look back, so from 1991 on, basically it became a special occasion for Phish to play Boston, because from like 1988 through 1990 or 1991, like they were regularly playing these small and mid-sized clubs or theaters in the city. But once 1991 hit, it seemed to be, all right, it has to be almost like a holiday show. So a short list. 1989 and 1990, they played New Year's Eve at the World Trade Center Exhibition Hall. 1992, they played New Year's Eve at Matthews Arena, which I think is still there, right? In Northeastern University.
And here we are now in this beautiful, serene building, playing our last set of 1992. And who would have thought that we were sitting here right now and everything's beautiful in the middle of Boston, and the building is looming up in the middle, and there's streets all around us. And as we speak right now, this huge ship is slowly coming down out of space and drifting down towards the top of Boston. And as people look down from the ship, it's a big round ship with lights going around it, and everyone is looking down at it, and they see Boston Harbor over in the distance, and it seems so beautiful and peaceful, and everyone all over the city is getting ready for New Year's and getting ready for the ball to drop. And meanwhile, nobody really notices that this huge ship is coming down, and it's going over different parts of Boston, and it goes over the garden, and slowly it starts to come over until it's right up above Matthews Arena. And right now it's coming down. I can feel the energy from this thing coming down, and as it comes down and it's looking down on the arena, and beams of light are coming in a circle surrounding the arena, and the whole arena is now starting to tilt from side to side. It's like the ship is lifting the whole building up off its foundations. It's starting to tilt over to the right, and it's tilting, and you can hear rocks breaking, and the building is starting to lift up in the air. Oh my God! What's happening? The building is... Ah! We're going up in the air! Oh my God! My God! This is terrible! The whole building's going up in the air! Oh! And it's tilting from side to side! And slowly, we're caught in this tractor beam! It's starting to spin around!
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah. Yep.
Boston Garden, which you mentioned, New Year's Eve '94, the big one.
Tell
us a little bit
special.
about that before we move on.
Yeah, that was a fun show. We had gone to Madison Square Garden the night before. We did not have a hotel room. We drove back after the show, but we were much younger people. I say we, it's my then girlfriend, now wife, and I. We discovered Phish together when we started dating in the early 90s. We were both live music fans, but neither one of us was a Phish fan. We discovered Phish together, so Phish has always kind of been the band that we, neither one of us has a leg up on the other, although my wife, if she's listening to this, will make it very clear that she's seen Phish 3 more times than me, and this summer, as mentioned, we'll make it 4. So we saw him the night before at Madison Square Garden, and then drove up to Boston that day and drove back after the show. And that was a special show. I remember they started with Golgi Apparatus, and the place just went nuts. I mean, it was it was loud in there before the lights even went down. Like, it was just a party vibe. And that was the year that the infamous hot dog ride happened through Boston Garden. And I believe that was the last concert that happened in Boston Garden, the old Boston Garden. It has been rebuilt. And by the way, the new one sounds so much better for concerts in there. But
But what is the new one called? Because I still know it as the Fleet Center. Is that still correct, or am I from 1996?
No, TD Bank bought the naming rights, and so it's the TD Garden now. But we just call it the Garden. I mean,
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Corporate naming rights is a pox on guys like us who want to know the name of the venue.
It's always going to be called Great Woods, folks.
Yes.
That's the name. That is what it's called. Yep. It was called Great Woods when Phish played Gamehenge there, and it will always be Great Woods. So, yeah.
And then after the New Year's Eve 94 show, they came to what was then, I was right then, the Fleet Center on New Year's Eve 1996. And then they came back in 2003 on their 20th anniversary tour. Why do you think that they're not playing at the TD Bank Garden? What do you think about it? Are they allergic?
I don't know, man. Like when they played the whatever it's supposed to be called, the SNHU Arena in Manchester, New Hampshire last summer, it was like, okay, well, I always thought maybe they thought the Garden in Boston wasn't big enough for the amount of people that they thought they would draw in New England, right? But and Fenway Park is, more than twice the size of that place. So yes, okay, or maybe about twice the size. So, okay, that Fenway makes sense. But, SNHU Arena holds maybe 8,000 people. So that's like half the size of Boston Garden. So right. I don't know what they have against playing in Boston. I wonder if Boston has something against Phish playing in Boston.
You Puritans, man.
Yep.
Never let go of a grudge.
That might be it. I don't know. Red, call the town of Morrison, Colorado, and ask them if they want to have Phish back for Red Rocks.
They played their last in 2003, but let's say from like 1997 onward, Boston gigs, you and I have both said extensively, were hard to come by because they transitioned, at least in the public consciousness as it existed as Phish fans, they kind of moved from being a New England band to kind of a New York City based band. They're not a New York City band, right? They're not like the Strokes or something.
No,
right?
not in any way.
Their ethos is decidedly not New York City based, but their business and the way their touring methods are very much, I don't think anyone would argue that New York City is their home base. Like their businesses and their offices are still in Vermont.
It's where Trey Anastasio lives.
Yes, right down the block, by the way, from Madison Square Garden.
I think is no small coincidence, yes.
Yeah. But for all intents and purposes, if you were going to see Phish in a big arena show north of Philadelphia, it was going to be New York.
Correct.
Not Boston. And the kind of conundrum I'm trying to get at the heart at, and I'm really hoping you can help answer it, is when these tour dates were announced for this summer, July 31st and August 1st, all of my New England friends, and I have a lot of them, at least online, I don't see them all that often in person any longer, but the Phish fans, when this tour was announced, they said the same exact thing. They said, oh, awesome, Phish in Boston, can't wait this summer, and fuck, they're playing at Fenway? And it was like with equal measure.
Yep. Same. Yeah.
So
Well,
it goes without saying that fishing a baseball field is not ideal, but is there anything about Fenway Park that's especially less desirable than any other large outdoor venue?
I mean, the sound and the part, all the things we've already talked about. That's what caused that reaction from me. Was like, it's a pain in the ass to park there. Okay, fine. It's technically in Boston, but it's like for us, you've got to drive down and then cross the river and then go over, or go over and cross the river. It's just it's a fiasco to get there. It's an extra 20 minutes, which I realize isn't a whole lot, but like it adds up. And then you're, it's like, parking. If they were at TD Garden, there's a million parking garages around there. They have no trouble parking everybody that wants to go see a Bruins game or a Celtics game or whatever. Like, it all just works. The logistics around Fenway are tighter because it's not in downtown Boston. It's in a residential area-ish that, and that's why the curfew has to be where it is. And it's all the things. So that's why. Yeah.
Phish has played Fenway Park 3 times to date. So the first time, as you mentioned, May 31st, 2009. My memory of that show is that it was announced very late. It was after the tour dates were actually announced. It was like an add-on because it was also a third date at Jones Beach that same week, right? They were playing 2 and they added a third one on Jones Beach, and both Fenway and Jones Beach were announced the same day. So that like added just kind of another wave of excitement to this tour. Like, oh my God, they're just throwing it all at the wall. Like, I was completely focused on Jones Beach that week, and I already had tickets for Great Woods. They would play on June 6th. Just a couple days later. But I remember my friend spontaneously decided to go up to Fenway because tickets were everywhere, right? You would think their first tour back, right? Their first show of the first
it was the
tour.
opening night of the tour, right? Yeah, exactly.
Right. You would, after being off the road for 5+ years, other than the comeback itself in
Hampton.
In Hampton, yes, thank you. You would think that it would be sold out, but I guess there's so many seats and it was announced so late that it was just kind of a mishmash who could go when.
Yeah, who was available to go, correct.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And when he came home the next day, my friend Craig, I remember his impressions were basically like a shrug. He was saying like tickets were everywhere. It was a weird scene. And so I only know this through like third hand. And in his words, the show is nothing too special, but he kind of showed the same kind of ambivalence that fans are showing for these 2 shows this coming summer. I think all the negatives of going to a show at Fenway that you just brought up that you might take for granted, it was hitting him all at once the first time because he had no idea what to expect. So that might have colored his opinion.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was very excited. We tried to get tickets for Hampton and missed that. It was a whole technological sort of breakdown. And so we did not go to Hampton, and we were really bummed because we were at Coventry. We wanted to be there at Hampton. And so we were excited about being at that show at Fenway. It was like, okay, we couldn't do Hampton, but at least we can be at the tour opener, which, like you said, was like the tour opener announced after the fact, but the date happened to fall before any others, so therefore it became the tour opener. It counts, right? Exactly. And the whole thing with the Star Spangled Banner starting out the show that way, they played Destiny Unbound that night, which was the first time I had heard it. And when we started seeing the band in '93, that song was already on the band has said they would never play this again list, right? And so it was like, oh, holy crap, like we get to, wow, all right.
Right across his vein. Mama's sucking cigar and a shovel and tar. The crater of a turnpike train. It's got only one hope and he wants to alone. Cause how he chill is driving him insane. We gotta get out of town. Highway Jill was a daffodil, the cactus in surprise. Finding a pasture at the wheel of a tractor when the roadblock started to slide. She saw Bill drop a shovel on a pile of gravel as he climbed up out of his ditch. She was wonderstruck when he climbed in her truck, set up in happiness, everlasting is. We gotta get on the road.
They're really like they're back, and I really enjoyed that show. I remember they played Ballad of Curtis Lowe that night. It was fun. Like it was a Phish show, and it was like, thank goodness we get to experience this again. I'm sort of going through the same thing or preparing to go through the same thing right now. I am also a fan of the band Rush. I don't know if you know anything about Rush, but, after their last show, 10 years ago-ish, shortly thereafter, Neil Peart, their drummer, passed away, and it was like, all right, well, that's it. Now the band's never going to play again. And no, they are, in fact, playing this summer, and it's the same kind of thing. It's like, is it going to be the same Rush that I saw? No. The drummer that, attracted me to the band initially has passed away, so it can't be. But I'm still really excited to be able to go to an arena with Rush playing, hearing all those songs, like I'm in. And so I had the same kind of feeling going into that Fenway Park show of like, no, this matters. This matters to me for reasons outside of whether the band can even still play.
One might say you had attendance bias going in.
I might have had attendance bias.
And not for nothing, this is for another we have a lot of podcasts we got to start to develop based on this conversation, but not for nothing, that the video clips that I've seen from Rush, from their recent gig that they played, their drummer sounds incredible.
She's was amazing. Fantastic, dude. Yeah, I'm a drummer, so like all of this hits me through that lens.
Right.
And I knew of Annika Niles, the new drummer for Rush. I knew of her. Her playing is very different from that which Neil Peart did. He was a driving force in that band. Annika's a groove player, and the way she came out and the fire that she played with, I was like, oh, this is different for her. But she's definitely, she understands the assignment, which is great. So yeah, I'm stoked.
Good. And Rush is back to back with Phish during those shows at Madison Square Garden this summer.
2 hours before we recorded this show, I recorded an episode of my podcast, Gig Gab, with Howard Ungerleider, who is Rush's lighting director. He is one of the few, Howard is one of the few lighting directors that likes to mix a show live. When he said that to me, it was sort of a perfect opportunity for me to say, there are others. And in New York, you are going to be going back to back, head to head, perhaps. And he said, well, you'll have to let me know how I do, because I'm going to go to some of those shows back to back. He did not know as of, April, how they were going to sort out the logistics of do both bands load completely in and out every day? Like, that's a disaster. Yeah. So, thankfully, that's up to people that, are paid to solve those problems. So.
I was about to say, as fans, it's not for us to figure out.
No, but I'm curious, are they going to be sharing a light rig? Because those are two very different bands, but the light show for both Rush and Phish is part and parcel of the show. Like, it is part of the experience. Yeah.
TBD. We'll have to do a recap episode.
Yeah, man.
10 years after they played Fenway for the first time in 2009, they came back, Phish did, July 5th and 6th, 2019, 10 full years after they played Fenway. I don't remember anything about the first night. I wasn't there. I wasn't at either. But I do remember the big hubbub from the fan base about the second night because the start was delayed by weather. The delay, as you mentioned, and the curfew meant that the show was one long set. So I looked over the set list in preparing to speak with you, and this is a long show. Holy moly. It was like, even on Phish.net, I was looking at the set list and wondering, when I was reading left to right, is it ever going to end? And the set list is from all eras of the band. It's a very diverse set list. Anyone who's asking, what should I listen to get into the Phish? This might be a good show to give them a sampling.
Actually, I never thought of that show being that way. I remember we went to both shows, and it was my wife and I and our two kids who at the time were, basically adults. And we had two sets of two tickets. And so the deal was we would each sort of mix and match each night, bouncing by sets, and let the kids, be in different seats. We were on the field for both sets of seats. And then when it was like, okay, this will all work out because we each have like moments in the good seats and moments in the seats that are not as good. They were all fine. But then when this happened, it was my son and I who wound up together for that whole entire Fenway set, because it was just the one set, of course. We kept wondering, like, okay, how long is this going to go? Because they announced online, it was, through Twitter or whatever. They said exactly what you said, like, we've negotiated with the city. We will be starting late because of the thunderstorms. We will not be taking but we are allowed to play past curfew. The concession the band had to make was that they would not take a set break, because the city was like, okay, we'll let you play past curfew, but you can't go and like disappear for 40 minutes. Like, right. You got to just like, you got to give something up here. So they did. And we kept looking at each other like, I thought it would be an abridged show, an abbreviated show, like, and it certainly didn't feel like that. And then I got the next week, or maybe a few days later, whatever it was, I got the tapes or the recordings of that show the night before.
That's right. On this podcast, you could still say the tapes. That's great. The preferred nomenclature.
Perfect. Okay. So I got the tapes, but the tapes were in, I was able to load the tapes into iTunes on my computer. And this is the part that's relevant, because I looked at the duration of music, the elapsed time of music played for that night versus the night prior and the nights prior and after. And they were all in the somewhere between 2 hours and 36 minutes and 2 hours and 44 minutes, with one outlier. And I can't remember which show it was that was like just over 3 hours. And that was like the long show. But everything else, including that July 6th, 2019 at Fenway, was in that exact amount of music played. It just wasn't split into two sets.
Breathing, burning.
They have it down to a science by now.
I mean, I think it's more than a watch. Yeah, I think they are literally on a clock for it. Yeah. Like I think that's how they're doing it. Yeah, yep. Which is fine. I mean, it's a business. Phish is a multi-million-dollar business entity, and they're definitely not going to mess up their product. I don't mean to distill it all down. I still love Phish. Don't get me wrong, folks. But let's be clear. There is someone there whose job it is to look at spreadsheets and make sure that the product is consistent from night to night.
Right. And one of the concessions, speaking of concessions, of Phish coming back in 2009 was that it wouldn't be them. They just want to show up with their instruments on stage, play, keep an eye on the clock, right? They got to do their part, and then walk off stage, and then Trey gets into his car and gets driven home from Madison Square Garden. But that's part of it, though. Like, it used to be during set break, you don't know how long set break would be. They said we'll be back in 15 minutes. It could be 40. It could be an hour and 10. Now you know exactly when they're coming back.
Yep. I was in Vegas on Halloween on 1998. We had to wait after the second set for their mushrooms to kick in so that they could come out for the third set. And the third set was terrible. So, yeah.
That ghost, whether or not you like it, it's something.
It was not that was not a good night to be in the building. Phish playing Velvet Underground was, I mean, there was one song that was good and it was obvious this is the song that's going to stay in the set list. And of course it was rock and roll. It did,
right?
You know, yeah.
So Dave, to wrap it all up, two things. First, I want to ask you any last tips and tricks as we wrap it all up. We've gone over a hell of a lot. This has been probably the most diverse in terms of topics. There were a lot of side streets you and I could have gone down. I think we like to talk a lot, both of us. Anything last minute tips and tricks for Fenway Park other than faking people out on where to park? Any other last minute things that you would tell a first time concert goer to the venue to see Phish?
Give yourself extra time getting there. It's going to take you longer to get in than you would like it to. So just be ready for that. I mean, they know what they're doing there. It's Boston. It's not some podunk town in the middle of nowhere. Like, they have security there, does their job, but they're not looking to cause trouble for anybody. They are looking for the real things. It's Boston. It's a major city. They know what they're doing. Let them do their thing, and you'll have a great time.
And finally, you've mentioned that you're in a band. You name-checked your own podcast. You obviously have the professional poise to speak about a topic you like. You have free reign. Plug everything you want. Every project you have, it's your microphone right now.
Oh, thanks. It is my microphone. I love this microphone. You said we got off on a lot of tangents, and it's, you put two podcasters together with a tape rolling, and that's your fault. So I play in a couple of bands. I play in the band that you won't see on whatever the night is, July 31st, because you're going to be at Phish. I'll be playing with Casual Gravity at casualgravity.com. That's the cover band that I play in. 80s covers, lots of fun. And hard rock covers, I should say, not just the 80s. And then the original band I play in is called Bitter Pill at bitterpillband.com, and Bitter Pill to Swallow on all of the socials. We are we call ourselves Haunted Rhythm and Bluegrass. We have father and daughter lead singers. Our bass player actually doesn't play a bass at all. They play a cello serving the role of the bass. And it's a show for everyone that is unlike anything you've ever seen before. So I hope to see it at some of those. And then, like I said, Gig Gab is the podcast for musicians that I do. And then I do a podcast for like Apple users, Q&A for Apple users called Mac Geek Gab, and one for entrepreneurs called Business Brain. That's me. Thanks for having me.
Dave, thank you so much for taking your time to do a deep dive about Phish history, about a little bit of baseball history, but Fenway, Boston, Phish, it's all mixed together anyway. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was such a blast. I really, really appreciate it.
And that's it for today's episode, and that's it for the 2026 Summer Tour Venue Preview. For today, I'd like to thank Dave Hamilton for joining me, but I'd also like to thank every single guest and every single person who helped out throughout this massive project. Thank you to them, and of course, thank you for listening. In addition to the thank yous, I'd like to add Phish.in for the multiple recordings used in today's episode, Phish.net for all the information we needed, and the Mockingbird Foundation for everything they do to help children's music education in schools. If you enjoy Attendance Bias, please support the show. You can visit www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate anything you can to keep the podcast going. You could also leave a review of the show wherever you get your podcasts. Every positive review and rating does help. You could also follow Attendance Bias on social media. Thank you again so much for listening. Enjoy Summer Tour, whichever shows you're hitting, and I'll see you next time on Attendance Bias.